I'm Sonic the Hedgehog, and you're watching 30 Days of Me, Sonic, on Super Beanie Man Gaming.
Really tough when deciding which Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon to watch, because as of now in 2021 there are just so many different series, different incarnations of Sonic the Hedgehog that I could watch. They're all vastly different, and for today's video I've decided to rank these cartoons in order from my worst to best. Take a look at these, talk about them, and then rank them either from the worst or to the best, depending on where I want to put them in the list. So I'm just going to go and do them off, talk about them in basically the order we sort of seen them when they came out. So it might be that the first one ends up at the front or at the back. You're not going to know until I start talking about it. So let's get on with it, shall we?
Released in the fall of 1993 and produced by Dick Animation Studios, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog was the first cartoon based on Sega's popular mascot, and in total there were 65 episodes produced, as well as a Christmas special a few years later. The show borrows heavily from Looney Tunes cartoons, specifically the Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner ones, as there are a lot of similarities between those shows and this cartoon. Sonic the Hedgehog is very much like a sort of Bugs Bunny sort of character who will often just take the mick out of the baddies and kind of embarrass them, and he will also use various different costumes to trick the enemies into making a fool of themselves and messing up themselves. So he doesn't really always use his speed to beat the enemies. Often he'll zip in and out of the screen and suddenly he's changed his costume and he's dressed as a professor or a woman or something, and that's kind of not what I liked about Sonic, because he never did that in the games, so it was just weird to see him do that in this cartoon. The Robotnik character is also just kind of stupid in this, and he always shouts and berates his two badniks that are always in each episode: Scratch, a sort of rooster chicken sort of badnik with a human form, and Grounder, who is more of like I guess he's like a mole or something that sort of digs through the ground, and he's kind of based on the badnik from Sonic 2's Aquatic Ruin Zone. And these two are just the bulk and skull of this show kind of thing. They're very much the Elmer Fudd and Wile E. Coyote of the Looney Tunes cartoons, in that they're always trying to hunt down Sonic, the rascally hedgehog, but they never quite succeed with whatever harebrained scheme they sort of come up with. And each episode was sort of like, what is Robotnik trying to do this time? What are Scratch and Grounder trying to do to stop Sonic? And Sonic will just come in, he'll do a few jokes, he'll do his catchphrases, and then he'll trick them and beat them. And it was kind of the same sort of setup every time. And it was kind of a mixed bag of a show, really. I mean, on the one hand, it was really fun to see Sonic the Hedgehog in animation for the first time. It was cool that Tails was there, but there was a lot of problems I had with it. Tails' colouring was kind of different to how it was in the games. He was more brown in this one, if I remember right. And Sonic was kind of just... he kind of came across as a bit annoying in this. This is supposed to be this like cool hedgehog with attitude, but he was just a bit of a dick in this, and his catchphrases were just kind of grating. The "I'm waiting" as he tapped his shoe. It was kind of you either love it or you hate it, and it wasn't for me. So yeah, this show was okay.
So for me, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog goes kind of in the middle of this list. It's okay. There are some good things and some bad things about this show. Okay, so next up to talk about and then put in our tier list ranking is Sonic the Hedgehog, also known as Sonic SatAm.
Sonic the Hedgehog, or Sonic SatAm as it's more well known by fans, was the second Sonic cartoon released by Dick Animation Studios, and it also came out in September 1993 and ran until December 94 for a total of 26 episodes across 2 seasons, before it was then unfortunately cancelled and left on a massive cliffhanger. But for me, this is one of the best Sonic cartoons out there, and it's completely different in tone and style to the Adventures cartoon, even though it still has the same voice actor, Jaleel White, voicing Sonic the Hedgehog, as it did in Adventures cartoon. So in this one, it's a much more darker and serious tone. In this story, Robotnik has basically already won and roboticized most of the planet, and there is only a small group of freedom fighters left to try and save the day and rescue everyone. Sonic is also joined by Tails, but in this version of the story, Tails is much younger. He's more of a sort of toddler in this point, so he's not old enough to go out on the adventures because it's too dangerous for him, which is a bit of a shame, and they did plan to develop his character more in the third season, which unfortunately we didn't get. However, Tails is very cute in this one, and he's very likeable as well, and there's some cool moments where he does go out on adventures with Sonic, and Sonic puts him in his backpack so he sort of carries him as he runs along, which was pretty neat. As well as those two characters, Sonic's Freedom Fighters team is made up of a load of new, unique characters to this show. The main one is Princess Sally, who is kind of Sonic's love interest in this. There is also Bunny the Rabbit, there's Rota the Seal, and there's also Antoine, who is perhaps the most annoying character in this one because of he's like a coward and he's just got an annoying French accent, and he kind of feels like he's a bit out of place in this cartoon, and he would fit right in the Adventures sort of cartoon because tonally he is really different. One of the cool things about this show is that it also features a really dark version of Robotnik, and I love his voice actor in this, and he actually sounds quite intimidating and menacing, and I love his design in this one over the Adventures cartoon. Another highlight is Uncle Chuck. It's Sonic's Uncle Chuck, and he's basically been turned into a robot, but he's still got his mind, his own mind, and Sonic eventually helps him out and they sort of rescue him, but then he becomes like a spy to try and help the freedom fighters out, and there's some really cool emotional scenes with those two characters, and Sonic actually cries in this show, which I thought was really cool, though Sega definitely didn't, and they didn't allow that anymore once they found out. But yeah, this is a fantastic show, and I really enjoyed the story and just the relationships between all of the characters and just the style of it, and the idea that Robotnik has beaten them all and taken over, because you never really see that in games, although we hadn't really until Sonic Forces, but they didn't really do it very well in that game. So yeah, this is an excellent show. It has an awesome intro as well. The theme song is just brilliant.
So for me, I have to put Sonic SatAm at the top of the tier list, because for me this was my favourite Sonic cartoon of all time. I don't think it's ever been quite topped because it's just so good. Okay, we're 2 down now, so the next one that I'm sort of slotting in here, though it might have come out a bit earlier than the other two, is the Sonic the Hedgehog OVA. So this was a 2-part cartoon released in Japan, and by the time it came over to Europe, it was released straight to VHS as a movie. So they just sort of stuck the 2 parts together and just called it the movie.
So when I first got this movie on VHS back in 1999, I thought it was a retelling of Sonic CD, as Sonic was seen to be going up against Metal Sonic, so I thought, oh yes, this is going to be great. But when I put it in and I started to watch it, I quickly realised that it's kind of not that at all, and it's kind of doing its own thing, as it's set on the world of Planet Freedom, which is split into 2 realms, the Land of the Sky and the Land of the Darkness, where sort of Robotnik sort of resides, and it's just a weird sort of story, to be honest. Sonic has to rescue a princess, and it's just weird. That's the best way I can describe this film. It's just a really strange sort of movie, and the characters are just all over the place, and one of the worst parts about it is just the awful voice acting. Sonic just sounds utterly terrible. Tails sounds like he has a cold all the time, and the rest of the characters aren't that great either. I think the best character in this movie is Metal Sonic, mainly because he doesn't really talk properly at all, and he's just there, and he looks menacing, and he looks really cool, and he's animated really well. But the rest of the characters just feel really shit. Sonic's voice is just terrible, and they have some really awful dialogue as well, which kind of ruins it. And it's a shame because the animation is actually pretty cool, and it does have a sort of similar look to the Sonic CD opening movie, which was like a really nice animation, and it kind of sort of mimics that, though it's not quite as like well done at times when he's moving around, but it's a very cool animation, and the fight scene with Metal Sonic is actually really cool, and Knuckles even shows up at one point wearing a weird sort of like cowboy hat, which is kind of strange. But yeah, it's just disappointing, and Robotnik's just really pervy in it. It's kind of like a weird version of Sonic, and it's not really something that I go back to and watch again and again because it's just not that great. The Metal Sonic stuff is really cool and it's a nice fight, but the voice acting kind of just kills my enjoyment of it, so I can't really give it a really good rating, to be honest.
So for my money, the Sonic OVA movie goes in at the bad rank, because I don't think it's the worst Sonic cartoon that we're going to talk about today, but it's very close to being the worst. There's a lot that I just don't like about it, from the absolutely terrible voice acting to the really pervy nature of like Robotnik with the princess. It just didn't really fit for me. And Sonic's voice acting was just terrible. I loved that he went up against Metal Sonic, and I thought their fight was really cool. But as a story, as a whole, as a film, it just felt a bit lacking, really, and it just could have been a whole lot better. And that is why it goes in my bad rank, because it kind of left a sort of sour taste in my mouth, really. Not good. Okay, so next up is a cartoon of Sonic that I didn't actually watch all of the episodes. Even though I've got the whole box set of the entire series, I couldn't sit through it all. So, yeah, that's probably going to give you a good indication of where this bad boy is going. And of course, it is Sonic Underground, the musical-themed show in which Sonic had a brother and a sister, a pink and a green hedgehog, with him as they were on a quest to find their mother, because they made a vow their mother would be found. So yeah, let's get into it and talk about Sonic Underground.
Ugh, Sonic Underground. Ugh. Okay, well, this was the third cartoon produced by Dick Animation Studios, but this one came out in like 1999, and at this point Sonic Adventure was already out, so there was a new set of characters that they could have taken and used, but instead they just go off on their own sort of acid trip with this cartoon, to be honest, because it's really strange, and at first glance it can kind of look like it's a sort of spiritual successor to the Sonic SatAm cartoon, as there's a lot of things that it looks kind of similar. The animation's sort of similar, the look of Sonic is kind of the same, and Robotnik almost looks exactly like he did in that cartoon, so it's kind of misleading at that point, because tonally those two shows are drastically different. This one is just a weird show, and it's kind of like part action adventure and part musical, because in this version Sonic has a brother and a sister called Sonia and Manic, and they are basically royalty who were separated at birth because Robotnik took over, and they are on a quest to reunite and with their long lost mother and try and help her overthrow Robotnik. And it's just really awful, because the three kids are in a band, and you'll be halfway through an episode and all of a sudden they'll start singing, and you'll have this like 2 minutes of a show where they just sing a song, and a really bad song. And worst of all, Sonic, Sonia and Manic are all voiced by Jaleel White, so if he annoyed you as the voice, he's going to annoy you 3 times as much in this one, because he does 3 of the hedgehogs, and it kind of doesn't really work for me. I like him as Sonic, but I think it's a bit overkill here, getting him to voice the other 2 hedgehogs. And yeah, this was just a show that I just couldn't put up with, because of all the music stuff and the whole band thing. It definitely wasn't Sonic for me, and I just wished they should have just had Tails with him and Knuckles, because Knuckles even appears randomly at some point in the show for a couple of episodes. So I don't know why they just didn't use those characters, especially with Adventure being out at this point. It would have just made sense. So yeah, I just really didn't like this idea of Sonic in a band. Nah, not for me.
I made a vow this one will be the worst, and it came true. Sonic Underground gets to be the worst of the worst Sonic cartoons, as it is just terrible. It's my worst ranking cartoon because I just think it's awful, and it goes too far away from what I liked about Sonic. He's not a pop star. I mean, I know that was in Sonic 1 originally. He was in a band, and there was like Madonna there. But the Sonic we actually saw wasn't like that. And he didn't have a brother and sister. He doesn't need a brother and sister. I didn't like that whole aspect. It was also annoying because it kind of taken bits from SatAm as well. And it was annoying that there was more episodes of that than there was of this great Sonic cartoon. And that always stings. I did like that it had Knuckles in it. But it was just hard to watch, and I only got through half of the season before just giving up on it because having to listen to those crap songs was just terrible. Okay, so we've now got 4 cartoons in there, and we've only got 2 left, to be honest. And between the Sonic Underground show in the late 90s, there was a bit of a gap between the next one, and eventually it came out, and I first watched this on CITV in the UK, having seen an advert for it randomly, and I had to just rush home from wherever I was, maybe sixth form or something I think at that point, and watch it. And that was the Sonic X cartoon. So this one was actually kind of loosely based on the sort of adventure games, but it was kind of doing its own story with Sonic coming to Earth and befriending a young boy named Chris. So yeah, let's talk about Sonic X.
Sonic X was created by TMS Entertainment with a partnership with Sega and Sonic Team, and it aired in 2003 to 2004 for a total of 52 episodes. One of the cool things I liked about this show was how it kind of bridged the gap between the sort of classic Mega Drive games and the Sonic Adventure game, in how Sonic was suddenly on Earth surrounded by a load of humans in adventure, whereas in the Mega Drive games he was on planet Mobius with just loads of animals and the only human ever being Robotnik. And this show sort of explained how he ended up on Earth before like the adventure game, and eventually the show would carry on so far, and it would get to the point where he would do the Adventure 1 and 2 storylines, so we would get characters like Shadow the Hedgehog, Rouge the Bat in it as well, and we also had the classic characters Sonic, Tails, Knuckles and Amy, and even Cream the Rabbit came into it at one point. So yeah, it was a lot to like. There was a lot of the Sega games in this show, and that's one of the things I really liked about it. The unique X aspect of the show was that Sonic was of course on Earth along with all of his friends, and he ends up befriending this young kid called Chris, who is like this rich kid who doesn't really have any friends, so Sonic sort of befriends him and he ends up living in their house. And it kind of brought in one of the worst aspects of the show, in that there was a lot of human characters that ate up the time. So you'd see Chris's parents, Chris's grandfather, the cook and the butler and everyone who lives in that mansion and works there, and they would get sort of airtime. Tails would team up with the grandfather, who was like an inventor, and sort of so on. So it was a bit of a shame that it was heavily focused on the humans and not as much on the animal characters that we know and love, but it was still cool to see. And Sonic in this was kind of a cool sort of character, and eventually all of these voice actors moved on to the game, so it sort of tied it all in nicely, and it was really well animated as well. I really enjoyed it. There was a great sense of speed, and the action scenes were really cool. They even did like the Sonic and Knuckles fights, and it was really nice to see, and the way they handled the Adventure and 1 and 2 storylines was really nice as well. It was very cool and really faithful to those games, to be fair, in a way, as much as it could be, with the whole Chris sort of aspect and him being intertwined into the storyline. And it also had a really nice sort of ending where Sonic and his friends eventually returned to their home world, not before Sonic had one little last adventure with Chris, his new best buddy. And again, Sonic actually cries in this show, so he sort of shows different emotions, and he actually has a personality as well, which I liked, and he was watchable and it was likable, and I really enjoyed this show. I thought it was great. The only downside is that after that season ended with the 52 episodes, it actually came back with another 26 in 2005 to 2016. However, it was made by a different team, and it was just drastically different. Suddenly, Sonic was sent into space. Chris came back, but they did like a Dragon Ball GT thing where, even though he was older now, because it was years later in the story, he had his young body, and yeah, it was just awful, and it really did leave a sort of shit stain on the series as a whole. I really wish they hadn't bothered and they just left it at 52 episodes, because it was just way, way, way inferior.
Okay, so Sonic X is going in the very good spot. So this one, for me and my money, is the second best Sonic cartoon out there. I will say though, they should never have made another season on top of that, because it went into space and it just didn't feel like the same show. So if I was going to split up the show, then Sonic X, the French season, where they go into space, would be down here somewhere between the OVA and Underground maybe, because it was just terrible. But I'm counting it as an entire package, and for that reason, the quality of the first 2 seasons or whatever it was, up until the original ending, was brilliant. And yeah, sure, the human characters were annoying, but I was watching it and waiting for Sonic to come on screen, and whenever Sonic, Tails, Amy, Knuckles or Robotnik were there, it was great. Okay, so now we've got one more spot to fill, so it's kind of obvious where this one is going to go. So Sonic Boom goes here in the middle sort of area, and it's the good rank. It's not a bad show, but I don't think it's the best show, and the reasons why.
Sonic Boom premiered in 2014, and it was an American-French produced CGI animated cartoon of Sonic the Hedgehog and friends, and it ran for 2 seasons with a total of 104 episodes. And well, it's based on Sonic, that's for sure, but this show is very, very different to what Sonic is in the actual games, because it was meant to be this sort of sub-franchise of the series with its own games, which eventually came out and they were absolutely awful. But it featured a drastic redesign of pretty much all of the characters, especially Knuckles. He looks totally different in this, but I kind of dig his more bigger, hencher look, as it kind of makes sense with his massive knuckles and him supposed to be in this character of strength. Sonic became more sort of taller, his arm colours were changed, and he had a load of bandages around him, as well as this Nathan Drake style neckerchief, so he would pull it up over his mouth when he ran. Tails was also had loads of bandages, and he kind of had sort of gadgets and goggles on him, and all the other characters had slight changes to their designs. And for me, I didn't really like most of them. I didn't see the need for the bandages and the tape. It just didn't really make sense to me. I want to see those cool sneakers, but I can't because there's loads of tape wrapped around them, which just always grated, and I didn't see the need to have the neckerchief. But worst of all, I hated the fact that they changed his arm colours. That was just a real bugbear for me, and I didn't like it in the movie either. But anyway, back to the cartoon, because I kind of went off on a tangent there. The cartoon itself is very much all based around its humour, and it is actually very funny and sort of smart at times, because it can do some really cool sort of scenes, but it doesn't feel like a Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon. It feels like it's a different sort of cartoon, but it just happens to use the Sonic characters. Because of how it's written, it's more about the jokes and the sort of setups, like Robotnik will want friends at some point and he'll get lonely and upset. And it's just these weird sort of comedy scenarios that the characters put in that doesn't really fit for me in terms of what I want from a Sonic cartoon. But that being said, it's still a really well made cartoon, and it is genuinely funny. Knuckles is hilarious in this, as well as Dr. Robotnik as well. They are probably the 2 best characters in this for me. I didn't really like the inclusion of a new character, Styx, who was like this Australian character. She was really annoying, but hey, a Sonic cartoon's always got to have at least one annoying character, hasn't it?
So there you have it then. That is my tier list for the worst all the way to the best Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for another 30 Days of Sonic. See ya!